Hi, thanks for stopping by and welcome to Devin the Details. We have some amazing shows coming up for you guys and lined up. Today we sit down and we talk to Faye Blake. She runs Pathways to Success, which is an extraordinary program that it's embedded in several of the schools in Delaware. And she actively works with youth, she works with parents, she works with communities. Her interview is extraordinary and I cannot wait for you to see it. Pop in. Welcome to the Dev Martell Show. We're here, Devin the Details, and today I have the honor of sitting down with the beautiful multi-hyphenate Mrs. Faye Blake, who is the founder of Pathways to Success. And we're gonna peel back the layers of what the program is all about, how it's working within our community and uplifting our children. I'm stoked and excited to be here. I've heard about the program for a very long time. My daughter goes to one of the schools where your program is in, and all I keep hearing about is Pathways to Success, and the wonderful things that you are doing in our community.
Thank you.
I'm gonna ask, can I
Yes.
dig in? Tell us who don't know, which I think everybody should, but tell us, for those who don't know, what exactly is Pathways to Success?
Okay. Thank you very much for being here. It is an honor as well. And Pathways to Success is a program that helps kids who are underserved. For the most part, we help all kids, but primarily underserved kids from 9th grade through 12th grade and a year after that. So we develop relationships and work with kids for just about 5 years and sometimes even beyond that. Because one of the things that we know about the underserved is that they need support. And so Pathways is within the school systems themselves. We really are there to help make sure that the kids in the schools have what they need. So kids who are hungry, kids who need mental wellness help, kids who are struggling with academics. We have wraparound services and programs that help kids with all of that. I have coordinators in the schools, and the coordinators are there every single day that the students are there. They develop relationships. We also are available to our kids 24 hours a day. We are advocates and budsmen. If they don't come to school for 3 days in a row, we go knocking on doors. We literally go into the communities. And the reason why we do that is because we care. So in a nutshell, that's Pathways. We have 98% on-time graduation rate for the kids that most in the school systems throw away. But we do a really good job with them, and they're very receptive to all of the things that we offer. Again, it's about relationship building.
Wow, it's incredible to me, the depth and the breadth of the services and just the amount of time that people give willingly, and just the amount of care that you've taken with regard to structuring, looking at the communities and seeing the very community specific needs that often go unnoticed. Our children end up being marginalized, often, falling through the cracks. But your program specifically speaks to not just giving people a handout, but a hand up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So one of the questions I had, we actually did another interview with another educator. She was on. Great interview, Ms. Joanna Zakos. She's doing amazing things. We had the conversation, and so we were talking about parents, and that quintessential myth that parents just don't care, they're not showing up.
Right.
And I felt it was important to lean into the fact that sometimes when you have parents who have more month than money,
Right.
and they're working very hard
Right.
to put food on the table,
Exactly.
and just keep their family stable and buoyant, sometimes we need help when we either can't fully advocate in those spaces
Right.
for ourselves sometimes, let alone for our children.
Right.
And so seeing a program like yours step into that space and say, I'm not just here for our children.
Right.
I'm here for our parents.
Absolutely.
I'm here for aunties and grandparents who are raising our children.
Exactly.
And we are here for the community. Tell me, when you first thought of Pathways to Success, what was the initiation for its incept?
Okay. Pathways to Success was born because of my own experience. I grew up in a very, very poor neighborhood, in a very, very poor household. My dad was an alcoholic, and I didn't find out my mother had battered wife syndrome until I went to college. So I then understood exactly what was going on with her and why, the fight, flight, or freeze. Unfortunately, my mom had just kind of frozen. But I lived with my grandmother from the time I was born until I was 8 years old when she passed. And that woman gave me every single thing that I am and have embedded in me today. And she cared about me. And what I did was capitalized on all of those things that she gave me and turned it into a model so that we could give it to the kids. And that model is called CARE. Consistent, authentic, respectful empowerment.
I love it.
Consistency, because we're there every single day. The kids are there. We also are available to them 24 hours a day. Authenticity, because we come real. We understand that the hoods that our kids live in, neighborhoods, or whatever we want to call them, they are marginalized and they are oftentimes impoverished. So they really don't have the wherewithal to really talk to anybody and have them understand exactly where they're coming from. Respect. One of the things I hear all the time, these kids don't respect us. Respect is earned. And I think it needs to be earned across the board. I think it's earned when you care and when you're authentic and when you show and demonstrate what respect is. And that's what we do with every single child. And then the empowerment piece. All of the things that we wrap around the children helps them understand how to advocate for themselves, how to stand up for themselves, how to problem solve for themselves. And so we do all of those things, especially from an academic standpoint, because we're in the room and we know how our kids are just kind of shoved aside. Our literacy rates in Delaware are abysmal. Some people get literacy and reading kind of mixed up. Literacy is all about understanding, yes, what you read, and then being able to write, being able to articulate, being able to give a speech, if you will. And many of our kids don't know how to do that. Well, guess what? We work on that too.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because one of the things that we often lean into, we discuss, as educators, we lean into, we discuss cultural competence. But oftentimes we forget cultural competence comes along with linguistic competence.
Absolutely.
It's just layers and layers. And there's a certain amount of cultural competence with regard to self.
Absolutely.
And I love that you guys really explore that.
Absolutely. And so with regard to the kids and where they are from a mental health standpoint, from going into the neighborhoods and understanding the trauma that our kids go through, one of the things that I decided to do a while ago was to actually have a mental health clinician give our students an ACE survey, Adverse Childhood Experience Survey. And within the top 5 of those, it's about physical, verbal abuse, neglect, etc. And then it's more about your environment with the next 5 questions. So we have about 400 students that we serve. We did give it to about 200 of the kids, and we had 158 who responded, because I wanted to get a good sampling to make sure that we could validate the data that we were taking a look at. Now, I rarely use the word data because our kids mean so much to me.
Yeah,
they're
we know
not
our
just
children are not numbers.
They're not numbers, and I
Want that
tell people that all the
information.
time. When you start giving me these stats, I'm like, talk to me about the kids.
Yeah.
But
The
in this
information is important to
instance,
collect.
it is. It really is important to collect. But in this particular instance, one of the things that we found is about 70% of the kids that we are working with, of the ones that responded, are in that top 5. Verbal abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, and all of those, those atrocities. And so what we did was we then figured out how to bring mental well-being to them. And I call it mental well-being because it is all about the well-being of the kids. And so we go inside and we try to help them understand the traumas that they're going through. Our kids go through traumas that sometimes adults can't even fathom, and they try to navigate. And so we're there to also help that.
Well, how do you, so I worked in behavioral health for about 20 years. And one of the biggest things that we came up against, especially with regard to, we like to say adolescent. We had to clinically call them pediatric, but
Right.
I say adolescent. The holdover and the carryover with regard to mental health and communities of color specifically.
Right.
With accepting the fact that, that mental health is a thing for us, especially for us, and all of the
Especially for
burdens
us.
that we've,
Absolutely.
brought from
Born
generation
on
to
our shoulders,
generation.
you better believe it. Yeah.
So how do you get parents and often our students, because I know sometimes our students will buy into things a lot quicker than our
Right,
parents will
right.
because of generation. But how do you take the time to get our students to acknowledge there may be a mental health issue going on, and to say, what you're experiencing is not just anger.
Right.
How do you kind of break down that stigma and go into that?
Okay, I'm going to start with probably the first part of the question about how do we break down some of the barriers with parents and students. We build relationships. We walk into the communities. When I go knock on a door to find out where one of our kids are, I'm talking with parents then. I'm letting them know that we're there as partners. And so when you build those relationships with the community, then you don't have to worry about breaking down other barriers that they have. And once they too understand...
I'm sorry, we have to cut for a second. Okay, so we had to stop for a moment because,
Yes.
Sometimes in doing our interviews, we sometimes stumble upon a touchstone, and, acknowledging certain things that are affecting
Right.
all of us across the
Yes.
board is so extraordinarily important. So I kind of, had a moment where I had to collect myself a little bit because,
That's okay.
what we were discussing is so very poignant
It
and
is.
so very relative and so very necessary.
It is.
So we were
100%.
discussing breaking down those barriers with regard to acknowledging mental health,
Yes.
acknowledging that the trauma that you're feeling is not simply just anger. Often, especially young people right now in this age of instant gratification
Right.
and media and things being so visceral and viral, and you are seeing the grit,
Yes.
and life kind of the way life bludgeons people in the face.
Yes.
And our children are seeing this.
Yes.
And they relate to it because
Yes.
it happens to them, but in a quieter pocket.
Right.
And they don't realize even why they're so angry. But we as adults know,
We know.
that you are towing that came before you.
Exactly.
And that became before you. And
Yes.
that came before you. And
Yes.
so now we find ourselves in these positions. So how do you step in to say, it's okay, and this is what this is. Let's work on it.
Okay. We go into the communities after the children when they don't come to school for 3 or more days, and we knock on the doors, and we knock on neighbors' doors, and we walk up and down the streets, and some of them are paved and some of them are dirt roads, and some of the porches we're on are dilapidated. We don't really care. It doesn't matter, because what we care about are the children that we serve. And in caring and being in those neighborhoods and looking like many of the people who are in the neighborhoods, there's a bond and a trust that gets created, because sometimes it's difficult to trust people from outside. So that's part of what we do. And in doing so, we're connecting with the parents and we're talking to them about what's going on with their child and why they may be getting referrals all the time, or why the principal is on the phone with them. And so then we go from there. Then we have our own clinicians that we bring in. And so here's the thing with this relationship thing. If you and I are cool, and you've been on my doorstep, heck, I've sat on people's beds in hotel rooms because that's where they lived and they were having problems with their children. So when I knock on the door and I have someone with me, if I'm good with them and they're good with me, then it's okay.
Meeting people
And
where
that
they
is
are.
exactly, we have to. And that's when a lot of the really wonderful healing begins. I have one quick story to tell you.
Go ahead.
There's
I'm
a-
about it. Go.
There's a young lady in one of our schools. I'm going to tell you, she just graduated from West Point.
Ironic enough, my mother and I were reading about her in the paper.
Oh my God.
And we sat down and
Yes.
we were having this conversation
Yes.
and celebrating this young lady.
Yes.
I think it was just last week.
Yes,
We were
just
in
like-
the
yes,
retreat.
yes.
So we were celebrating.
She's
So,
one of my young ladies. She's one of my young ladies. Not to go into a whole lot of it, but had a really bad time. Mom and dad kind of broke up. There was, she was the babysitter, and she was in school doing ROTC in Pathways program, and just one day just had enough. And who does she call? She called one of our coordinators and said, I just need help. I need somebody to talk with. And we're there to talk. We talked her through, but not only did we talk her through, we showed up. And when we show up, we strengthen individuals. And what could have been a really bad situation where she wanted to walk away, she had the impetus because we were there to make sure that she went even further. And now, she came back about 2 months ago and talked to every one of our Pathway students and just said, listen, when people tell you they care and they show up, because it's got to be demonstrated, and they're there for you, and they don't walk away from you no matter what you do, please believe them. And that's what Pathways is all about. And she said, I will do whatever I can, whenever I can, to show up and to also help out. You see,
Now,
you can't make things like this up because, see, it's the pouring into other
Yes.
people's lives. Oftentimes we take away so many things, but what we do is we pour in to these kids' lives. And one of the things you said to me that is so important is meeting people where they are. I've been there. I've done that. I know what it feels like. And when you know what it feels like and you know how bad it feels, you want to do everything in your power not to have somebody hurt like that.
So, first of all, I just want to say thank you for acknowledging spaces and voids that so many of us see but feel helpless to be able to even fill. And so we just keep going.
Right.
I know the work that I do myself as an activist and an advocate is crucial and important, and oftentimes it feels like a thankless job.
Right.
But we keep going.
Right.
So, in the interest of piggybacking and dovetailing of that, what does self-care look like for you? How do you, the work that you do is not light work.
No.
It's heavy, and you bring that emotion, you bring everything you have, like we were saying earlier, you pour all of yourself into it.
Yes.
How do you not bring all of that home, and how do you balance home and the work that you do?
Okay. First, I'm going to give you a two-word answer. It's hard. But anyway, one of the things that I believe in is this. I believe that I stepped into my purpose when I founded Pathways. And so Pathways is not a job. It really is my ministry. It is what I do every day. And so the one that gave me that purpose is also the one that I go back to when the burden gets really, really hard. And there are times when it really does. I've had about 5 times throughout these 18 and a half years, I've been doing this for 18 and a half years, where I wanted to just stop because the things and the atrocities that happened were just so hard. And so I thought, okay, I'm done. But I really did pray about it. And I looked around at all of the kids who have already graduated and gone on to either college or get good jobs or become entrepreneurs, and kids that come back to give back. And I thought, you know what? This is bigger than me. So I don't need to shoulder everything. I need to give it to the one who said, the battle's not yours. I just have to keep walking in the purpose and creating a legacy so that, forget whatever my name is. Doesn't matter whether you remember me to be Faye or whatever. What I need us to remember is what we need to do for the kids. I'm a servant leader. And in servant leadership, one of the things that we understand is kind of how to just walk in certain ways that it doesn't weight us down, because it's a constant flow for me. Like, okay, Lord, this is real heavy right now, so you're going to have to intervene. And he will, and he does. I believe in him. He said, if we had faith the size of a mustard seed, what could he do? We could move those mountains from one place to the other. And that's exactly what I do. I have a supportive family. My family is absolutely wonderful. I have a 54-year-old. I have a 53-year-old. We'll get to it.
It doesn't
and a
crack.
40-year-old.
It does not crack, people.
Does not, right?
No, it doesn't. I've seen
Yeah.
a chip,
Yeah.
but no crack.
Exactly. So anyway, so I have wonderful kids and I have wonderful grandkids, and we are all in service to one another as well as to the communities. And so it's kind of in our DNA to
Yes.
do it. And when you have that kind of support system, then guess what? And I have been incredibly blessed. I have been. Who am I not to give back? I have to. I'm compelled to. I have to.
Now, it's interesting that you mentioned that because often we talk about service. I personally believe that everyone on this earth who has been successful, everyone, it doesn't matter what you've done, what you've accomplished, everyone who's ever been successful, it is because they have taken a role of service in
Yes.
some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
And I think the beauty of what you're doing and what you step into every day is service, and service is most fulfilled when it's unnoticed,
Exactly.
when it doesn't feel like service,
Exactly.
when it's coming from a genuine, honest point and space and perspective with no expectation of return.
Exactly.
So my question is to you, in walking through those spaces of strident service, which I can't say thank you enough. If I had 1,000 tongues, I couldn't thank thank your organization enough. I know I have nephews and nieces who have benefited from your program, and so that's why it was so important for you to come on
Thank you.
and talk about what you're doing.
Right.
But in working with service, how do you pass that tradition of service onto the people that you're working with, the children that are coming through you? How do you emphasize? Is there a program that you have, or is there a motto that you have that emphasizes service specifically?
Absolutely. Part of what we do, and the motto I'm going to say is the CARE model. We teach that to the kids that we serve. They understand what CARE is all about. And when we talk about consistency, okay, let's take it another level. Consistently what? We consistently show up. We consistently look each other in the eye. We consistently hug even though the schools don't want us to, because we need to know what gentle contact
Yes.
is. We have to know that, because that's how we know that we're being cared for.
And culturally.
Oftentimes, and culturally.
Culturally for us.
Absolutely. Yes,
Very
indeed.
big thing.
And that's a big thing, to also bring cultural relevance to it. And I'm just going to do a sidebar, if I might, with cultural relevance. One of the things that we have done is embedded in every program we have Black history. And I'm talking about authentic Black history.
It gets sticky
My
because
team
some
is
programs are trying to eliminate
they
Black
are
history
trying to
altogether.
eliminate
Florida.
it. Yes, they are trying to eliminate it. But Pathways will never do that. We are also taking my entire team through something called the Zen Project. Please take a look at it. It is teaching us how to really teach the true story of our legacy in this country, not watered down.
And not written by someone else.
And not, exactly. We are teaching it authentically. See, and this is where it comes in. Everything that we do comes from the heart. One of the things that I'm going to tell you is you model what you want the kids to do and to be. And you also help them work through how to problem solve and how to think in a different way. And if you're consistent with all of those things, sooner or later, it starts to really resonate with them and they give back. We have kids who come back all the time, who give back to the students who are there, whether it be them coming in to an after-school program, them coming into an in-school program, whatever it is, so that they can help model the way. And so that servitude, it's in everything we do, and we teach it through, just like I said, our care model. Because being in service is one thing, but we also have to empower the kids. And that's where the respect for learning comes in. Doesn't matter who your teacher is, respect whatever knowledge you need to get from them. If you don't like them or whatever, or you think they don't like you, doesn't matter. My grandmama used to tell me, it's water off a duck's back, girl. So guess what? Whether they like you or not, let it be water off a duck's back, but get what you need from them. And then once you do respectfully, then you internalize it and it empowers you, it propels you, it takes you to the next level, wherever that wants to be, wherever you want to go. And it will also give you the strength to take the next steps that you need to in your life. It does.
I love it.
That's what we do.
So Langston Hughes had famously discussed, there was an old adage, he was giving a lecture, and there was an adage where they were talking about community, and they were talking about the Harlem Renaissance, when they didn't know it was the Renaissance at the time, but they were discussing community, and one of the people in the audience had famously said, there's no handbook for parenting. There's no guide for parenting. And to which Langston's response was, there is. There is no guidebook, there's a mother. There's no guidebook, there's a father. There's no guidebook, there are aunties and uncles. There's no guidebook, there are grandparents. There's no guidebook, there is community.
Exactly.
And so these are our templates. And so, but often that kind of gets lost, where you have people kind of come in and they have these conversations where, there's no guidebook to, to raising children. There's no guidebook to how we should be doing this.
Right.
But I lean into what Langston was saying by iterating the fact that if we are to be community stakeholders, right, and we want value to come from our community, then we must be representatives of that value.
Absolutely.
And so I see sometimes my generation, I'm almost 50, and so a lot of times I hear my generation, instead of uplifting our children sometimes, you'll hear the negative connotations.
Right.
They just want to dance, they just want to booty shake, they just want to, X, Y, and Z, they just want to, also forgetting that, they did the same thing, but, often decrying these behaviors, right, instead of saying, well, guess what? If this is what I'm seeing and it is not serving our children, how do I step in and be of service? It's just that loop back to service.
It is.
Everything that you've discussed today, just almost every poignant thing with regard to community, I see in your program. Absolutely. And I just cannot celebrate what you're doing enough.
Thank you so much.
Cannot.
Thank you.
So I want to change gears a little bit.
Sure.
And I want to know, if I'm just someone moseying about the community, every day, right? And I say to myself, I think I want to be more active in this community. How does someone reach out to Pathways to Success to become more active, or to donate, or to support Pathways to Success?
We have a website. And on our website, it has actually a page for volunteerism, and we love to get those applications in, and we love to talk to the people who want to volunteer. And so it's www.pathways-2-success.org. So you would just simply fill out the application and send it in. We are also located, and people can come by and visit, in Georgetown, right off from the Circle. 4 East Laurel Street is our headquarters. That's where all the magic happens, we say.
So sausage gets made.
That's where the sausage gets made. Yes. And so we welcome people to stop by. We have a plethora of different programs that are also outreaches to the community. A while ago, in trying to help our kids understand the various paths that they might want to take, everybody doesn't want to go to college, and that's okay.
Which is important.
It is important.
It's important.
It really is,
People
because
forget
why
about
go into
trades
debt? Absolutely.
and-
Why go into debt if you don't really want to be there anyway? So we partnered with DP&L, Delaware Power and Light,
Yes.
and they have something called CAST, which is a construction and skill test. And so that test is your entree into that particular world. And that world really is a game changer if you get in, because we're talking $50,000, $60,000 salaries for kids that don't have a college education.
Yeah.
But it's heavily laden with math. And so we have someone, an ex-principal, as a matter of fact, who used to be a teacher, who actually teaches that particular thing to our kids. And we are going to be reaching out into the community because maybe there's somebody out there who wants to upskill. If so, come on in, take the test, take the prep test, or take the prep class for the test. And so we do that. We also have Microsoft Office that we offer, because Microsoft Office certification is a 5-year deal.
It is.
It's a good entree into some of your banks and other kinds of jobs. And then we take a look at the landscape of our teaching staff around here and throughout Delaware, I'm going to say throughout the country. And most of the teachers are white, most of them are middle class, and you don't see very many people who look like us. So we started something in conjunction with Delaware State University, a wonderful woman by the name of Jenny Fercucci, who was our Teacher of the Year. And so we're growing our own teachers.
We're actually going to have her on, too.
We created a prep classes for that. We're having a professor come from Delaware State University, and he's going to teach year 3. Kids will walk into college if they are going to go into teaching with college credits. We also have connections with some of our partners, and we have something called work experience. So one of the things that we know in underserved, I know I did when I was younger, I worked because I needed to. I had to help pay bills.
Yes.
So when kids are taking these particular extra things, we pay the kids to take them. We pay them like $20 an hour so that they have money to take. So they take the classes, they pass it, so they're not missing anything from some of their part-time jobs and things like that. So we try to offset, because it really does matter whether they bring in money or not, because sometimes it's a difference of food and electric and all of those things. So when I talk about us trying to provide for the whole child, absolutely, positively, that's exactly what we do.
Which is also important because so many of our children look at what's going on in our communities, and they look at who's making money.
Exactly.
And who's making money, and they know that they have to eat. They know that they have to go to these courses. And oftentimes, sadly, it is a decision between, do I go to college or a trade where I have to spend money that I know my parents can afford, and I may be, they may be seeing themselves as a burden, or do I do the most immediate thing and try to make money by any means necessary in order to fill that space? So the fact that you're doing that, again.
Yeah, we will not be accused of, because many of our kids go into the wrong kinds of things in order to get money. And so we want to try to take that off the table by not only feeding them with knowledge, but also putting money in hand so they can feed themselves. And that's part of it, that old adage about, the fish. You give a fish for a day, right?
Teach 'em. So my daughter, my son, we had a program that was like yours. But we were fortunate enough to have one of the college coordinators. We met one of my neighbors. She was phenomenal, Debbie Chinkamani. She runs this company, and we were fortunate enough to meet her to help us, just guide us through all of the steps with regard to going on to college.
Right.
But one of the things that we noticed when we were kind of looking at colleges, we saw a few articles with regard to students in urban areas and students in areas such as ours, which were specifically being targeted for, I guess I dare say, junk degrees.
Right.
But where these kids get into college, they're getting invited to these colleges. With this, you'll get a 5-year master's degree in X, Y, and Z, only to find out that the degree is pretty worthless, or the title it's under is hot garbage. How do you navigate steering, your students away from those colleges or universities, or and what should parents or our students be looking for?
Okay. One of the things that we do with our students with regard to college and applying for colleges, etc., is we take a look at the college's accreditations. We also take a look at the college's completion rates. Now, I'm going to tell you that when I start looking at completion rates and I see that the average student doesn't graduate until about 6 years or so, I steer kids away from those schools, and there are listings of completion rates out there. In addition to that, you can take a look at your accreditations that colleges have. Our coordinators, my coordinators, are very versed in all of the information with regard to FAFSA. So the 400 kids that we have, we literally sit down with those who are college ready. We sit down with the parents, because
Personalized.
oftentimes
I love
parents, everything we
be.
do is about a relationship. So with the parents, oftentimes they don't want to give financial information. So with us though, they will, because again, there's some trust built there. And so we walk the kids through every step of the way. We help them understand why out-of-state college is going to cost you a whole lot more than an in-state college. We try to help them. If they do want to go out of state, then we look for scholarships and things that they can get to offset it. In addition to that, the in-state schools, we're always testing, because in Delaware, we don't have that many. So I have to tell you that I pretty much know everybody in every bursar's office, every financial aid office.
Knocking on doors and
everywhere.
calling.
You better believe it. And I make it a point for us to know who they are, because sometimes they don't always give just everybody in the public all of the information.
Yep, which is power.
And information is powerful, and it is key. But knowledge is the key. And so it's about researching. It is about making sure that those lists of colleges that have, rates that are just ridiculous with regard to completion, because it's all about money and giving absolutely nothing.
Having students fail and take the courses over and over and over again, racking up debt. It's terrible.
Absolutely. It is horrible. And all it does is rack up debt for them. So we take a lot of precautions to make sure that our kids' investment, because it is an investment, and it's something that they're going to have to pay back oftentimes down the road, because FAFSA and the dollars that we're getting today is so minimal that it's almost ridiculous how much college costs these days. And that's the reason why we try to do the balancing act with, do you really want to do this, or do you want to maybe do a trade or something different.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to make sure that they know all of their pathways and expose them to as many things as we possibly can.
So, I hate this part, because this is the part where we start closing out the interview.
Okay.
But
this has been wonderful. Thank you so
it
much.
It went by so fast.
It did go by fast.
Fastest interview I've ever done. It felt like we just sat down and blinked. We're done.
I know. It's just such a conversation. It was great.
I love it. So I ask very poignant questions at the end of each interview.
Okay.
Because, as an interviewer, I like to take a little something home with me to learn every day. You learn something new every day. But I love to get people's perspectives and see where they are.
Okay.
So, the rapid fire questions. You ready?
Okay, ready.
What does love look like to you?
It feels to me. Love is a feeling. It's warm. It's safe. It's quiet. It's loud. It makes you happy. That's what love is to me.
What is the biggest misconception about yourself that you would like people to know?
Oh gosh, that people view me as almost like I've never had a struggle or a problem in the world. And I don't know whether they need to know it or not, but the assumption that their, trauma hasn't lived at my door is absolutely ridiculous. I have a 54-year-old daughter and a 53-year-old son. I've been raped, I've been beaten up, I've been shot, I have been homeless, I have been all of those things.
Oh,
and
we need
then
to pull
some.
the layers back on that one later.
Okay. And all before I was 15 years old. So my existence has been a lot. But here's the thing. I thank God because see, I know that He had me in His hands long before I even really knew Him. And I know that those prayers, I call them stored treasure, that my grandmother prayed over me, that is what got me through. And those things that she put on the inside of me, she told me I was smart and I could do anything and be anything that I wanted. And I believe that woman. Every word she said, I believe.
Raising children
and
in
I
safe
lived
spaces.
it. And I lived it. For me to have done some of the things that I've been able to do in my lifetime, there's absolutely no way. I defy the statistics, and that's why our kids will never, ever be a statistics to me.
So, if you could tell the world, the entire world, in 5 words or less, something that would help uplift and bind it, what would it be?
Love, be selfless, give, never ever lose hope, and reach out and hug somebody every day.
If you could have a conversation with a 13-year-old you, right? Knowing all that you know now, what would you say to your 13-year-old self? What would you say to that little girl?
Girl, your life is going to be awesome.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank
you so much. I have to tell you, this was an absolute pleasure. One of my favorite interviews that I've done, and I've done a lot of interviews. This has been one of the absolute best, and I just want to thank you.
Oh my
Thank
God,
you
are so
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Oh Lord,
Thank
you're
you.
so
Thank you.
welcome. You're amazing. Thank you
Oh, yeah.
so
Thank you.
much.
And people like me couldn't have done it without people like you. So thank you. Thank you. So that is it. Sadly, that is all the time that we have today. We want to thank Ms. Faye Blake, Pathways to Success. You can find information about Pathways to Success. We're going to put up a link on our website. You can go to www.devmartel.com. And again, thank you for stopping by, where every perspective is respected and every conversation has value.